Hey, you might be feeling hopeless today, but your stories should not. So stay tuned. We're going to talk about that.
Welcome to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, where we inform, encourage, and support Christian indie authors on their journey to publication. I'm Jamie Hirschberger. I write short fiction under the pen name J.R. Nichols.
I'm Jennifer Carl Tong, and I write historical Christian romance.
I'm Christina Catena, and I write Christian fiction and nonfiction.
Well, welcome everyone to our podcast. It's so good for the three of us to be back together. I know the actual reunion was last week, but it is always so nice to be here together virtually and to welcome all of you to our little virtual meeting here where we talk about all things writing. Piper is joining the live today. Good morning. And also Christy, which I'm sure means Sadie is somewhere nearby, her homeschooled child. So welcome, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. We do get together Fridays at 10 a.m. Eastern to live stream this podcast. And if you ever can make it over to our chat and meet these wonderful people in our community, we would love to have you. And we do appreciate everyone who catches the podcast on their favorite podcasting app. Anywhere podcasts are streamed, you can find the Christian Indie Writers Podcast. Do please share us with your friends so that our reach could increase. And like and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you are so inclined. That really does help us in so many ways as we continue to look for ways to support this, what we consider a personal ministry for each of us. Mm-hmm. So thank you for all of your continued support. Today we're talking about hope. And Jen's little intro there was apropos of kind of like before we went live, sometimes hope is not the first word that comes to mind when how are you today, and normal people know that this is just a throwaway way to say hello, but people who are differently wired want to be like, well, where do I begin? And sometimes hope is not the first word that comes to mind, right, ladies?
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah. But we're talking today about our narratives and our writing and keeping hope as a part of them, why you want to, and how you actually do it. Hope-centered stories, they are, what are we talking about, Jen and Tina? We're talking more than just, are we just talking the power of positive thinking or what?
No, I feel like that could be shallow, right? We don't want to be too shallow in what we're writing and everything is just so positive. That I don't write that way, right? I think that to be careful that when we say that it's hope-centered stories, it doesn't mean that there's not darkness in your story. I would argue that there would be, if there's not darkness, there's no hope, because you got to have hope, to overcome something. You can't just have a character that's just going to hope, right? That's what I would say.
Well, and I would say if you're talking about just positive, okay, for some reason, this example came to my mind. When I had toddlers, children, when my children were toddler age, anything that was media that was created for them was created explicitly to remove anything that might be scary or triggering or dark, and so everything was just very positive. And guess how that made the narrative feel to the adults in the room? Yes. Isn't that so? If you think about it, you don't want to provide that experience for your reader. So we're not talking about just all positive all the time.
Right. And I know I joked when I did the opening and said, you might be feeling hopeless. What you don't know is right before we went live, I called Jamie hopeless. I was just cracking jokes. We're going live. Okay. We're talking about hope. It's because you're hopeless, Jamie. I don't even remember what we're talking about. I was just joking. But all joking aside, I think in a lot of ways there are parts of our lives and for sure in this world that does feel hopeless. And we a few weeks back, gosh, it's probably a month or more now, we did an episode on what the studies are showing. There are studies out now that are showing what Christian readers are buying, what specifically they're looking for. And one of the things that they're looking for is hope-centered narratives. They want to read a book that has hope. And I think that's why, is because I think they're craving hope, because in a world that we live in right now, sometimes it does feel like it's hopeless.
Yes, there was the American Center of Evangelical Literature, and they did a study. That's what you're referring to, right?
Yes.
And they specifically were saying, what do readers want in their work? And I think you're right to say that it's, you look around the world and things are pretty hopeless. And it's interesting too, because even from a secular perspective, my social media is not all people of faith. And they're feeling pretty hopeless as well. And I think that that's maybe a kind of a backdoor way to reach them. We have had a lot of episodes about how to write Christian without writing preachy, and possibly including hope in your narrative is a way to maybe be a witness. And I think that if you handle it well, let's go back a minute. Let's backtrack. You said that everything can't be all bright in order to have hope in a narrative, right?
That's how I feel. Yes.
Okay. And so are you saying, so you're hurt your characters? We would go back to that. And then conflict. Didn't we recently also have an episode about conflict?
Yeah, we've had a few. Yeah.
So this is kind of like the yang to the conflict yin, if you want to be esoteric about it or whatever. You want to have the conflict and the hurting your characters. And then if you handle it right, the hope will actually be strengthened in your narrative, because how can you appreciate the hope if you don't have the despair?
Exactly. That's what I was trying to say. Like you can't appreciate the morning sunrise if you never had the darkness in the evening. If there wasn't dark overnight, right? So the same thing.
Yep. And if you're really into your stories like I am, and you connect with the main characters, then when they're feeling despair, you feel despair. And when that little nugget of hope comes, there's like a huge emotional impact in those moments where you're like, oh, maybe.
Yeah, because if you think about what hope is not everything is fine, right?
Right.
I mean, that's not hope. Because if you're hoping for something, it isn't actual. It's a promise of something in the future, right?
Right.
I really think about Moses. I think about Moses a lot because I'm a Bible study teacher. But, like the time between when he left Egypt and when he saw the burning bush was 40 years, 14,240 days.
Whoa.
And then God sent them to Egypt and the plagues and all the things, and they went across the Red Sea. And then they wandered in the desert for another 14,240 days. And he went up on the mountain to get the law. He was only gone for 40 days. And the Israelites lost hope. And they built a golden calf. And why didn't Moses lose hope? He endured and persevered for all those days, because he had a quiet hope. He had a hope that endured through all this hardship, that endured through not seeing God do anything. And the Israelites had a shallow hope.
Yeah, that's a great example.
I think you really hit on something. It's his actual perseverance in because goodness, as you said, 14,000 days of not seeing the promise of what, and this isn't just kind of like maybe, the man on the street corner prophesied something to you. No, this is like straight from the horse's mouth that this is going to happen. And you're waiting and waiting. And the fact that I would just be like, oh, yeah, well, it's been 12,099 days. I think it's time to quit hoping. So very interesting. And then the shallowness of 40 days. Like, can I hold out hope for more than 40 days? I just recently went through a very trying period of my life. And I wonder if I think I lost hope on like day one. Everything is hopeless. This hope for a promise is not for me. So yeah, it really does make you think, but I think that's why we admire characters who can hold on to hope and persevere like that. 14,000 days. Wow.
I think it's also good too if you write characters that are not holding on to hope, but there is someone in their life that is encouraging to, like at some point they learn to hope, right? That's another thing that we can strive to write because so
I
many of the
like
people
that.
reading your books may struggle with that.
And
So,
that's real life. Like, we don't start
mhm,
out knowing how to hold on to that hope. We learn it.
mhm,
Wow. Yeah. And
right.
yeah, a lot
Yeah,
of
and you don't
people.
want sorry.
No, you go. Go, go, go.
As you don't want to write stories that like sound preachy. We've talked about this before, or just unrealistic, like with your hope either. Like, oh, I don't know how I'm ever gonna pay my mortgage. Ding dong. Here's money for your mortgage. Like there needs to be. I mean, I have stories in my life that's happened. I mean, growing up listening to my grandfather, my grandmother, he was a pastor, and they were very poor when my mom was young. Like I've heard lots of great stories, but there has to be moments of trust, and there has to be a process. Like you don't want it to be the problem can't be solved too easily. Um, there has to be genuine hardships. You can't like make these like, oh gosh, I'm all out of band-aids. What am I gonna do? And then they find a band-aid in another drawer. Like that's not
Mhm.
really a hardship. That's not really like, oh, I sure hope I can survive my band-aid gate. So it's
Yeah.
yeah.
It needs to be a hardship that will have an all is lost moment at that point in your
Mhm.
story when all
Yes.
is lost.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it's shallow and the readers are gonna be bored.
Well, and also you miss out on so many opportunities to show the reader the mettle of your character
Mhm.
by having them have to wait for the fulfillment of the promise of hope. Because how your character reacts to these setbacks and challenges and roadblocks is going to be making them more realistic and alive to your readers.
Yep. And I know that as a romance writer who always has a happily ever after, because that's what romance is, that might seem easy for, me, but I don't want reader or writers to confuse that it has to be a happy ending in my book. No, it can have a meaningful ending. A character can die, but we know where the character is, because you can have a character die and you don't know where they are now. Do you know what I'm saying? Like there's different ways that
Mhm.
you can have meaningful endings that still shows hope.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes the hope is the meaningful ending. So, in some kind of an
Mm,
apocalyptic story or something where everything is decimated, but there's hope at the end because they see the little green shoot of whatever coming up out of the ground, that can sometimes create the meaningful ending.
mhm.
I couldn't
Agree.
help but think of a Obi-Wan Kenobi, like when he appeared at the end of Star Wars with Yoda. Like, sorry.
Spoiler
Oh,
alert. Tina's so good for the spoilers. It was so funny. I
If
like
you
to tease
haven't
you,
seen
Tina.
Star Wars by now,
you're
You
probably not
say
ever
it every time. It's so great. It's like a routine. Okay, awesome. All right, so let's talk about where to find hope. Now, we've talked maybe about some big grand things, the whole world is a wasteland and there's the little shoot coming up. But we really can look for hope in the small details. Wouldn't you agree?
yes. I yes, let's move on. No. I mean, I would never say that you couldn't just do hope as a speech at the end, like because there's lots of examples of great literature that has done that. I mean, you can look at there are long, long paragraphs of speech in different Lord of the Rings books that convey hope. But I would argue that really it's the little things that happen along the way that show hope in those books. So I would say that I would rather write a story that shows the hope rather than telling the hope.
yeah.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned Lord of the Rings, but a lot of those stories that have those long speeches are stories that are assigned reading in school, and otherwise nobody else will read them. Just kidding, but
Kind of true. Kind of true.
it can be a little bit dry and dirgy and annoying to have big long speeches come in to deliver a message of hope. And plus, that's not what we listen to in real life either. When people start kind of going on and on and on, it's not effective. But what would be effective?
I just want to say though, like in the Lord of the Rings, that one line, "All that wander are not lost."
Mm,
Like that's like a one-liner that just screams hope.
Mhm.
mm.
Yeah, and
And I
it's
just butchered
it's
it, but
mhm.
you get the
Yeah,
idea.
How
it's
about
kind
a
of everywhere.
how about a half dead plant that a widow still waters, even though it's dying and
Oh.
something.
Yeah.
Oh, I like it, especially if it had some connection to the passed away husband.
Right.
Or, setting a table, you leave the open place. I think that there's in the Jewish tradition that there's a a practice of doing that. I can't remember which holiday it's for, but the practice of
Passover.
setting the table. Yeah, the practice of setting the table for a guest who may or may not ever come back, but there's hope there, right? Putting a candle in the window. My parents do that with a little electric candle because of my sister who used to live far away, and now myself who lives far away. So that's just a little symbol of hope that they
Aw.
have.
Have you ever seen somebody have their Christmas lights up in like March and April and you're like, "What in the world?" I never judge because I know that there are some military families that they leave their Christmas lights up until their loved one comes home. And so that can be a sign of hope that they are hoping that their loved one will come home for them to celebrate holidays with.
I
I
did
have
not
the
know that.
cows of the
Mhm.
nativity on my front window,
Mm.
Oh,
mostly because it was supposed to be peeled off, and then when I went to peel it off, it wouldn't come off.
So now
There's
all hope is
permanent
lost of your windows ever being
there
cleared.
there's one donkey that only has half a body because I said, "Well, I'll just get a razor blade," and, after doing that, I'm like, "Forget it." I mean, like,
that's great. Yeah, okay.
Hey, we have in our
I
notes routines. I want us to make sure we don't skip past the routines. Like
yeah,
you
go
can
for
use
it.
using routines to symbolize hope. I think is such a beautiful thing. The person that their prayer has not been answered, but they continue to pray every day for it, like bringing home a missing loved one, or um, that God will heal them, or I mean, just prayer in itself is a symbol of hope because the Lord knows our needs. But when we pray, we're opening up the communication back and forth with him, right? And so that is showing that we are still hoping for what we're praying for. So I think that like routines that we do too are just can be a very beautiful thing to show hope.
yeah.
I really like that. So, just as a refresher, our takeaway here is that hope is in the smallest details. Doesn't have to be big, sweeping, grand gestures or moments. It doesn't have to be long speeches. It can just be in little things that characters do and helps to depict the message of hope to your readers.
Mhm.
So, we've already talked a little bit about hope is most powerful when the story ends despair or earns despair first.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And it's tricky. Everybody should go back if you're curious about this and look up our hurting your characters episodes. I'm sure we've done more than one, but I just feel like, Jen, you're the one who likes to talk about how in advertising you have to have so many touches of a
Oh, yeah.
concept before it will really stick. How many is it?
The 7 touches of
The 7 touches. Like,
Mhm.
unless we've done 7 hurt your character episodes, maybe we need to do more because it's so important. You don't want and you don't want it to be a sanitized struggle either.
Right.
Now, if you're writing, I don't know, juvenile fiction or something, maybe you want it to be not so, terrible. But if you do sanitize the struggle, it's going to weaken the emotional payoff. So you want to make sure you're really giving your character something to deal with.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think if you're writing junior fiction, like some of the things that are disasters for them wouldn't feel like disasters for us. Like
Yeah.
their friends didn't speak to them and just walked by them in the hallway could be a complete disaster for like a junior high student. Like,
Right.
why is my friend like hanging out with that girl that hates me and not speaking to me? Could be like hopeless to a junior high student.
Right. So knowing your genre is important because that still is, like you said, that's still a disaster. You
Yeah.
know, you're still not sanitizing it. Right. Agreed. I just want everybody to know I'm a nice person. just so you know, because I really thought Jamie was going to say Jen likes to hurt her characters, because we say that a lot, because I say it as well. But it's not because I'm a mean person. It's because I know the reward, the payoff of it is that we're going to have a better character arc. We're going to have better just a better plot that's going to keep it moving, and then we have hope. It brings forth hope. So I think that the difference between like a hopeful story and an easy story is that you have to have all those elements. You have to hurt your characters. You have to have the plot points. You have to make sure your story is moving forward in ways that is compelling, and that your characters live real problems and experience real problems and still come out the end hopeful. Right? That's the whole purpose, is because we need to see, because as Christians, we have a hope. We have a hope beyond this world, right? So that needs to be expressed in our stories too. Whether you write Christian fiction or not, as a Christian, I think that's a very important message that you need to be writing.
Jen likes to hurt her characters. I like to put mine in completely impossible situations. And
That's
we see
hurting.
them a little bit at a time trying to work through it. And they can't do it on their own, so they have to also rely on faith. Like that kind of describes everything I write.
Mm-hmm. Piper says, if hope is holding a desire for something with expectation or anticipation, aren't romances all hopeful stories? We know the ending will be the happily ever after. Yes, that is exactly like. And so again, if you are writing a book and you say it's a romance and you don't have a happily ever after, it's not a romance. And I would say it could still be hopeful. It can still have a hopeful ending, but if it doesn't have a happily ever after. So yes, that's very true, Piper.
Well, and I think in the instance of romance, the hope is transferred to the reader. I think the hope is the readers that the characters will get together, even if hope isn't an overwhelming theme of the actual romance that you're writing. You might have hopeless characters, and but I think for sure readers are coming to it expecting. To your point, Jen,
Yes.
and you want to fulfill that expectation. It's funny because I talked about the 7 touches regarding hurting your characters, but I feel like there's also 7 touches with know your genre, because that's something that I find us repeating over and over, and something I think that would benefit everybody to kind of internalize as a sacred key to good writing and good narration. So we talked with Tina's example of Moses. Letting your character sit in the uncertainty longer is important. Don't solve their problems right away. And we did also talk about, yes, and we did talk about like, you've got to feel like things are never going to get fixed, and fake out, so to speak, to where the problem does get solved, but you think everything is lost there for a moment. And I think the trend has been towards cynicism. I kind of talked about that before when, JFK's assassination and sort of that time period sort of ruptured the trust that the citizenry had in just the system in general, right? And I feel like cynicism has possibly run its course. Would you guys agree that audiences are looking for something else?
Yeah, I think it runs in cycles for sure. And I think that people are to a point where we've seen enough realism. We've read enough realism. We've, like the gritty stuff, which there's still a place for it. But I think that and I think this study that the Evangelical Association did shows people are looking for faith-filled, hope-inspired books. And because we are at a point in our life that we are fed up with all the rest of it.
I have a perfect example of this with a reader, because when I was at my mom's for those 2 months, she has a girl that comes in 3 times a week and helps her bathe and all that stuff. And her name was Farah. And Farah was a Christian homeschool mom, avid reader. Like Farah and I got along really great. And so Farah's like, "What are you reading?" And I was reading this dragon series about dragons, and it's kind of dark. And she goes, "Oh, I love stories about dragons." So she wrote down the name of this title, and she went and she said she only got into it and it was too dark for her. She's like,
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't read it because the world just seems so dark right now, and I need
Mm-hmm.
something a little bit lighter and brighter.
Mhm.
So like that's a perfect example of what we were just describing. Like she didn't want to read these stories that seem so hopeless for so long. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I love it.
Mhm. Yep.
You're right. Okay, so we're going to talk now about some like practical ways to do this. We've talked about why it's important. We talked about a little bit about common pitfalls, but how do we do this? How do we actually incorporate hope into our writing? What's a good first tip?
Well, don't use a sermon.
Mm.
There's another 7 touches.
Yeah, we say that a lot, don't we?
Like if you're going to use a sermon, have your character only hear one line of the sermon, and that's the line that makes them question everything or feel
Mhm.
convicted or makes them go home and rethink everything. Did I already say that part? But anyway.
Mm-mm.
No, I
Um,
think that's right.
so this may come as a shock for everybody who knows me as a plotter, but I think you need to build hope scene by scene and plot it out and make sure that you build it into the story. I think intentionality is important when you're writing, even if
Mhm.
you don't plot, like knowing where you're heading and knowing how you're going to weave hope in how there's going to be hope for your characters through your story is important.
Yeah, and I think that when we talk about hurting our characters, it's interesting because I think of myself way back, novice writer, I don't know, just years ago. It wasn't so much that I didn't want to hurt my writers. It was like I didn't want to write a character who was like embarrassing or gosh, I don't really know a really good way to put it, but a flawed character or a character that would not be likable.
Mm,
I just didn't want to write a character, and I guess the word that we use is flawed, right?
mhm.
But flawed in a certain way to where you're just cringy. You cringe when you read about the character, but don't shy away from any of that. And I think because I used to feel like every character was somehow me, which
Mm,
we have talked about that yes you are in all of your characters, but the character, the way that the readers feel about the character is not going to translate onto you as the author if you've done your job right. Just like you can see a good actor in several movies and forget that this is actor so and so who you've seen in so many films, because if they're doing their job right, they disappear and the story comes through. So when you write characters who are struggling, they have to be kind of bad to go anywhere. How
mhm.
can they get better if they start off good?
Yeah, right. I agree because I think the character arc is the most important thing that you do in your story.
Mm-hmm.
And perfect characters are not relatable because all of
No.
us, except for me, I'm perfect, but the rest of you are all
Yes,
flawed.
yes, Tina,
And
you are perfect.
and so how can you relate to a character that's perfect? You want to
Mm-hmm.
relate to the flaws and you're like, "Oh, I'm like that too."
And
Mm,
it's interesting too, because even like the heroes of stories, every once in a while they have to be saved by somebody. Every once in a while, the villain gets the best of them and drugs them or what. Like they're not infallible. They don't have an Achilles. They don't not have an Achilles heel. They don't not have something that's flawed about them. And that's when we're talking about like a superhero or something. But even
Kryptonite.
but
characters. Go ahead.
even the opposite of a superhero, this is a great example, Jamie. I agree with everything you just said. Now let's flip the coin. The villain. How many villains do people love?
Mhm.
Darth Vader, um, Loki. I had like 4 in my mind, and now I can't think of any of them. Like they're just even Cruella Deville. People kind of love her a little bit because she's just so like
The guy from
crazy.
Despicable Me.
Yes, Gru. So like you can write like even someone who's doing the worst things, like uh, like a Darth Vader. He's terrible. People love him. He's a great villain. But guess what? There's still some hope there. right? They're even the worst villains, you just hope at some point that they turn, right? And even
There's
the ones
something redeemable.
redeemable, even if they're not redeemed by the end of the story, they're like you can build in little bits that make people like, you know, a little bit of humanity into your evil characters to show hope. So it's a great example. Even a superhero needs someone to save them sometimes, and even a villain can be show hope as well.
Yeah, and I think a lot of villains are born out of hope being extinguished at some point
Yes.
along the way for them. There was a experience they had, or just a trial that really squashed their hope. And
Mhm.
until that is rekindled, maybe that is why their arc has gone the way it has. All right. So finally, I just want to touch on why restraint is so important. We talked before about not marching in and giving a long speech. We've talked about not giving a sermon, but can you just kind of elaborate on the fact that restraint is going to be more powerful? What do you think I'm trying to
I
say
feel
there?
like that goes to the show don't tell. Like you're
Ah,
going to show through these little details, these little moments of carrying on despite hopelessness, or the character sees the eagle flying and remembers that God was guiding her. Like those little
mm,
moments sprinkled throughout this struggle that they're going through. Um, it's just so emotional. It's just so powerful. And if you just keep handing them the answers, your readers, I'm talking about, um, th- there's something satisfying about reaching that conclusion on your own as a reader. Like
right.
it's hinted at in the story, and you latch onto it, but it's not just told to you. There's something really satisfying about a story like that.
Yes, and that's why we pick up a story, right? Is so that we can
Mhm.
have that feeling.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think that when I say restraint is more powerful than overt messaging, I think about all of the things that a person can gain through incremental effort as opposed to like one big effort, right? Like if you go out today and run, 5 miles, that's not going to do as much for you as consistently running for 15 minutes every day for 30 days. And I think that it's the same when you restrain the payoff of the hope being fulfilled over the course of a story instead of an immediate gratification.
Yes. If you have a character that believes that God doesn't love them anymore, and then all of a sudden, like 3/4 of the way through the story, all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, I guess he does love me." Then and that's not gonna be realistic, but if throughout the
Mm-mm.
story, God shows up in little ways, and then it starts to chip away at their belief system, and they start to, read scriptures that, or people show up in their life to show them God's love, and, um, then by the
And then in the
end
Alice last moment, there's something happens that reinforces the belief that he doesn't love them.
but they
And
still
then
but they still believe that he loves them.
but
Yes.
and so then they have to come back to he does love me.
Yeah, exactly. That's way more realistic and more believable and so much more enjoyable to read than just like miraculously. Again, if you're not plotting it or if you're not planning it somehow as you're writing and you're like, oh, I got to put hope in here, you just throw it in. That's going to be, you need to do it this way, the way we just said. It needs to be peppered in.
Well, and it's interesting too because of my comment about sometimes a villain is born out of hope being squashed.
Mhm.
Because we have examples listed here in our outline that we can talk about. And I see here a character quietly choosing kindness after a betrayal. And
Mhm.
that's the opposite of an enemy arc or a villain arc, isn't it? So it's
Mhm.
almost as if there are two ways people can respond to the suffering in this life, and it's either I mean, I'm not going to say like the dark side or the force, but I'm saying you can choose kindness after betrayal, or you can choose to become someone who betrays others. And these choices that your characters make are going to communicate that message of hope or not,
Mhm.
or a message of despair conversely.
Mhm.
So the artistry and the craft is knowing when and how to implement each and to have your characters make those choices. And good to think about when you're trying to develop a villain as well. Okay, so how do you do this? How do you actually go ahead and write this out, friends? Like what are some actionable tips?
Well, I think that if you want to strengthen your hopeful moments, then you need to have some emotional contrast there. You know, that there needs to be not only things happening in your story, there needs to be things happening in your characters. So
Uh,
I would think that that's where if you feel like your story is falling flat in this area, then I would go and work on that part of your story.
yeah. So emotional kind. So in the hopeful moments, you're saying not everybody is necessarily happy about the hopeful outcome, or you're saying go internal when the resolution starts to appear on the scene.
Leading up to it. So
Okay,
if you
gotcha,
feel
gotcha,
as
gotcha.
if like, because you have your hopeful moments, mostly probably like the culmination of it. And if you feel like it's what we talked about before, how you just all of a sudden they're hopeful,
Yeah.
you've not done enough internal work. You need to go back and do some internal work. Like, let's go with the example of what was the example we used earlier of somebody that thought that God didn't love them, right?
Mm-hmm,
You need to have a
mm-hmm,
moment where they drop a Bible and it opens up, and when they pick it up, it's a scripture that they highlighted when they were 11 years old, and they read
mm-hmm,
it and they remember the moment that they highlighted a time in their life they completely forgot about. And then that all is internal. That's all them reading it. That's them contemplating. That's God speaking to their heart. Um, so that's all kind of internal. Like the external stuff is somebody showing up with their mortgage payment when they need it and didn't realize that they just said, God just told me to do this. That's an external thing. The internal thing is them holding the money for their mortgage and them thinking like, is this real? Is this God showing me they love? That's the internal.
mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying is you have to work the internal, the emotional contrast between what they say God doesn't love me, but the emotional part, it starts to move and starts to work. That's the part that I think that gives you a better payoff for the hopeful moments that we see at the end of your story.
Well, I like that. And I will piggyback onto that because when you say someone shows up and gives them money for the rent, that is showing a transformation of like the theme or whatever through an actual action that happens instead of those speeches we were warning against. So if you're tempted to throw in a sermon or you're tempted to throw in somebody coming in and talking about how hope is important, instead have them do something, have them take an action that
Yes.
will just feel like it's moving the story in a more hopeful direction. It doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily have to be what they say, it can be what they do.
Mhm.
I think that's true in real life too, because if somebody's hopeless and I come and I say, well, the Bible says that darkness might endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. That's
Mm,
kind of like a shallow platitude, even though it's God's word. To that person who's feeling hopeless, that might just feel like a kind of cliche thing to say.
Mhm.
But if that person really thinks about that verse and internalizes it, it becomes something in here instead of something they're hearing, then that can spark hope and that can be something to hang on to.
I
what
think
is
that
that scripture that says go now and be full, go now and be warmed? And isn't there a scripture that kind of even says that, like, what good is it for you to say that to people instead of giving them food and clothing? I'll have to look it up.
yeah, Jesus said it.
I believe
I
it's yeah.
I think this what you both are saying really kind of comes down to you also have to balance realism with the encouragement. Like we have this hope, but it can't be all of a sudden all the problems are solved, right? There has to be realism in this. Like this woman, her mortgage payment just got made. She still doesn't have a job and she still has to figure things out, but she has realized that God does love her, right? Like we're creating a story on the fly here that doesn't exist.
Mhm. No, you're right.
But
You're right.
but there
Mhm.
has to be realism. You can't make all of a sudden like, um, "Oh my gosh, my mortgage is paid, and oh, look, now I have a job that pays me $2 million a year, and oh, look at that." Like, you need to have some realism there for the hope
Right.
to feel authentic, for your your readers to be able to identify with the character and the story and the struggle.
And if
Oh
you
my
want to carry
goodness.
on
Go
an
ahead.
emotional struggle, it could be, okay, now I believe God loves me, but do I love me?
Ooh, yeah. It's
Oh,
good.
I like that. Well, and as Jen was talking, the best example of this I could think of was It's a Wonderful Life. Now, I've recently seen the stage production, which I feel like does it very, very well. It's been a while since I've seen the movie, but spoiler alert, the town comes together to help out in the end,
Mhm.
right? And so it was interesting, especially in the stage play, how that is like built up for you to believe it in the end, because George Bailey has such a track record of always coming through for those people that their help in the end does not feel like the Deus Ex Machina, the
Yes.
fake help. It feels organic. It feels like that is what would happen, even though it's the spectacular, oh, really? The whole town's going to come and do it. But no, it's true. And you believe it because it's set up for you from the get go.
Yeah, that's a really great point.
Okay, so I think that we've maybe covered the topic, and it's time to move on to the feeding of the Becks. Do you ladies have any final thoughts, or are we good to move on?
I'm ready to move on. I know Jamie messaged us before we started and said that she didn't like her sprint, and if we wanted to cancel today, we could. She was kidding. But I like my sprint, which I never say.
Ooh, good. And you get to
Watch it
be
be
first.
bad. Now that I like it, watch it be bad. But
Oh, it's going to be tough to follow, but I've already set up that mine's terrible. So anyway, Jen, we are going to share our prompt and what we wrote this week.
all right. So the prompt this week was a character refuses to give up hope for one small irrational reason. And I did not get to the prompt. I was getting there, but I
Ooh, okay.
continued from last week. If you remember last week, Marnie and Mr. Boss were at a putt-putt
Oh,
course,
yeah.
at a mini golf course. Okay. And she was leaning against a scarecrow, and he said, "You look like you're in your element," or you're in your something like that.
Yeah.
All right. Marnie looked at the scarecrow. Oh, like a Midwest cornfield? Mr. Boss shook his head. No, not the actual scarecrow. I meant the wackiness of it all, he said, sweeping his hand over the surrounding putt-putt course. Marnie smiled. I'll take that as a compliment. I'm not sure I meant it as one. Just stop talking before your inner jerk comes back out again. Come on, the next hole is open. Marnie went Marnie went first, finally sinking her ball after 8 strokes. I think I'm getting better. She turned to her opponent, ready for his snide response, but instead of giving one, he just frowned at her. You think I'm a jerk? It wasn't
Hmm.
asked angrily or even sardonically. His question sounded sincere. You shouldn't ask questions that you don't really want the answer to. She answered just as sincerely. I never do. Marnie took a deep breath. Yes, from my experience with you thus far, you are a jerk more times than not. He seemed to ponder her words. Why didn't you ever say anything? Marnie's mouth dropped open. Are you kidding me right now? I call you out on it constantly. I never let your jerk statements go unanswered. And you think our rapport is you calling me out? That is not how I would categorize our banter. Really? How would you categorize it? He shrugged. I just thought you were flirting. Marnie choked on her own breath as he set up his next putt and dropped it in the hole. Marnie nearly screeched. We have not been flirting. That's not what I said. I said you've been flirting. I've just been direct and concise with my words. He walked to the next hole. Marnie stood dumbfounded for a few seconds, then yelled from where she stood. Remember when I said you were a jerk most of the time? 3, 2, 1. It literally, the alarm went off after I said it.
Oh, I
Nice.
love this. I like this too because it's a healthy conflict. Ugh, you know? I can't stand like, screaming matches, and I really appreciate that she's just gonna tell him that she thinks he's a jerk. And I really like that he took it in and, responded to it. Again, I'm a big fan of healthy conflict. I love that.
Thanks.
Yeah, that um her frustration Like, that's what I latched onto.
Mhm.
Like, her frustration that she's saying one thing and he's hearing something. Like, it just seems like they're not jiving.
Mhm.
And, I could feel that.
Yeah, and I think it's funny how her mood suddenly changed. I think that up until the point where she realized he wasn't kidding and he really wanted to know whether or not she thought he was a jerk, and I feel like that was risky for her, to be honest. And I do appreciate that she was brave enough to be honest about it. Piper, she's rolling on the floor laughing about the flirting, and she said that this was really fun. I agree.
Thanks. I love that I finally got a good outline for this because now I know where this is happening. Like I didn't put on their putt on my. I just know like what's happening, and I know where in the story and where the relationship is in the story, and so I know like it helped me to not just write a fun scene, but I feel like I have a purpose in it. So I'm getting excited. Yeah. So thanks everybody.
We are all getting excited about getting the whole shebang.
Yeah. All right, Jamie. I'm excited. I know it's gonna be good because every time you say I hate
it's
it.
fine.
Yeah.
Really, honestly, what this is everybody should just realize that sprinting is just to exercise your writing muscle.
Yep.
So here we go. Allison groaned as she eased herself into the chair. She took a sip from her diet soda. That's a mistake, Pete said, pointing at her with a set of rolled silverware before adding it to the stack he'd created. I know, Allison waved him off. She was known for loudly complaining that taking a break between her double shifts was a bad idea, as once she sat down, she found it difficult to get up again. But in typical Allison fashion, she was ignoring her own sage wisdom. Pete sighed, but said nothing else. If Allison was a bear during the night shift, well, that would be a problem for the others. He was off tonight. You got any plans tonight, Pete? Allison asked. Pete eyed her suspiciously. Look, Al, I've almost finished rolling my silver and I've done my side work. There's no point in. She waved him off again. No, I'm not going to ask you to take my shift. I was just legitimately curious about what you've got planned. Avoiding the question, Pete resumed rolling and said, I'm hungry. It's so irritating that they've taken grilled chicken off the menu. Don't change the subject. Tell me. Allison chewed her straw as she stared at Pete. Did you ever think that maybe I'd like to keep my private life private? Nope. Pete blushed. He'd certainly peacocked enough when he'd had a date or a concert to attend. Of course, Allison would expect him to fill him in today. Well, if you must know, I'll be spending tonight working on my miniatures. Your what? My miniatures. A silence fell between them, during which Pete tucked his completed silverware into a cambro and stood. Look, Al, I don't share about my miniature hobby because it really doesn't seem on brand for me, if you know what I mean. I honestly don't, Allison replied, gesturing vaguely to her to-go cup. With her to-go cup. I have no idea what a miniature is. Sounds both mysterious and boring at the same time. I thought for sure you were going to tell me you had tickets to see Medici or a date with that cute bartender from Stormy's you've been talking about. Okay, Pete said. Have a great shift. He left her sitting there, trying to be glad that she'd shown very little interest in his hobby.
Yay! I don't know why you don't like this. This made me
This is
laugh.
nothing burger. Nothing is happening.
Girl, I think these characters could be your Marnie and Mr. Boss. Now they don't have to be like romantically involved, but like I love the banter and I love Pete. Pete is like comes off as he's like some slick, handsome guy or whatever, but he's going home and doing miniatures. And if you don't know what miniatures are, like it's definitely a nerd out thing. Like if you know what they are, you're a nerd and we could be friends, right? Like
Can I just say that Henry Cavill, I saw an interview with him, and Henry Cavill has like a whole miniature army that he plays with. So he could be like the most handsome guy on the planet.
All right.
Still like sorry.
Thank you. This is an instance of
I need to go repent now. I'll be right back.
Oh,
Yes, yes.
I loved it, Jamie. I thought it was great, and I think it was a great exercise of your brain. And I would not be upset if these characters showed up occasionally whenever you just don't know what to sprint. That was a lot of fun to
I
yeah,
appreciate that. Thanks,
yeah.
everybody.
And
Yeah, it was. Go ahead.
Piper says miniature is so fun, and then she says, "Hey, guess I'm a nerd." LOL.
Yeah, the small irrational reason, I got small in my head, and that's sometimes how a prompt works. And I didn't have anything about hope or any of that stuff, but at least I wrote today, and that's how I hope that you all feel about it too.
I forgot to mention my where I was heading with mine. Like Marnie has hope that she's gonna win this, even though like he's like like there's no reason for her to think she's ever gonna win this putt putt thing. But that's where I will eventually get to the story. Sorry,
I
don't
think
mean
she's
to
down like 32 strokes already.
something like that. There might be a little. You know how we say that there's a little bit of you in each of your characters. Her putt putting abilities right here.
That's terrific.
Jason says, nerd here too, maybe painting miniatures as I listen. LOL. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
That is one of those things where I know better than to get myself involved in that hobby, because I like strategically am thinking down the tunnel of time how I will invest in all of this equipment and stuff like that, and then store but I do think that it's cool. Anyway, whatever. So
speaking of hobbies,
so
just real
everybody.
quick,
Yes.
we've not had any visits from Kurt recently.
Oh, I know. He's just been naked in my garage. It's very hot out there. So
and I've been sending you Instagram posts with inspiration for Kurt. I'm gonna have to up my game.
He'll need a new outfit. Maybe it'll be something fun to do with the grandbabies.
Yeah.
Okay, so Tina, what did you write for this amazing sprint prompt?
Okay, here we go. Shayna squatted at the edge of the river and dunked her mud-caked shoes into the water. Brown clouds plumed into the waves as her shoes began to appear whiter. When she was satisfied, she set that shoe aside and grabbed the other one. A shiver racked her body, threatening to topple her into the water. She couldn't remember a time she'd been more exhausted. Her arms, back, and legs had an ache so deep she was sure it would never ease. The second shoe sufficiently freed from mud, she looked down at her jeans. From the knees down, they were also caked in mud. The idea of wrestling them off her body made her feel the weight of exhaustion she was in. Instead, she stepped into the river, hanging onto an overhanging tree branch to steady herself against the current. She gasped, goosebumps rising on her arms and neck and her feet screaming at the burning of the icy water. She scrambled out, her right foot slipping on a slimy rock as she fell onto the bank. Crawling away from the river and collapsing, she rolled onto her back and looked at the low bank of dark clouds that rolled angrily across the sky. She needed to get up. The shelter she dug into the clay needed a roof before the rain came. But first, she realizes she needed a fire. Because now not only were her jeans muddy, but they were also soaking wet, and her skin was tingling from the denim rubbing against it. Forcing her body to rise, even as it screamed in protest, she made her way back to the square hole she'd dug. She peeled off her jeans, her body beginning to shake with cold. Reaching into her bag, she pulled out a pair of dry socks. At least her feet would be a bit warmer. Finally, she dragged the frame she'd lashed together for a roof over the hole, and then began to drag the spruce trees she'd piled nearby. It only took a few minutes, but it felt like hours. She climbed inside her little shelter, feeling relief already from the wind blowing against her cold, wet legs. Grateful she had the foresight to make a teepee of sticks and kindling before working on the roof, she grabbed her flint and steel. Her hands were shaking so hard it felt as if they might drop from her hands at any moment. "Please, God, just a little more strength," she whispered. The flint sparked on the first try, and flames licked up the kindling. A spark of hope on a world-ending day.
Oh, really good, Tina. I know I'm a
Mhm.
little chilled right now, but as you're reading that, I got the chills about being
Mm.
cold, and ooh, I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
gosh, I hope their fire starts.
Mhm.
Well done, well done. Like, yeah.
Thanks.
From the moment you had the brown cloud rippling into the water, I was just like, Tina must see a movie in her head when she reads. Are you one of those people? Because like
Yeah,
you write descriptions of just the right stuff to really, I say this about your writing a lot, but it's true, to really just put the person into the environment. And you also pay good attention to the physical sensations that the person is feeling who's going through these things. Just your knack for description, your talent for description is just showcased like crazy in this piece. It's very good description. Wow, I think
thanks.
it's great. Yeah, and you know what? Piper agrees with you, Jen. She says it made her freeze despite looking out at the bright sunshine. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that is really excellent descriptive writing as usual, Tina.
Agree.
Gosh.
Thanks.
Okay, so thank you for sharing your sprints. Yes,
Oh,
yes,
Jason,
Jason says
Jason
he
agrees.
agrees. Tina has such a way for description. Yeah.
Speaking of Jason, I know we're in a hurry. We have like 1 minute. I got to give a real quick before you got to leave, Jamie. Can I do my what's next and
Yeah.
what's up? So I started a new job for those of you that don't know. And at my job, there was a Jason Marsh sighting. I got to see Jason this week. The job that I work at, he works at occasionally. He is a great help there. And we got to do, it was outdoors, the thing we had to do for 8 hours. Jason and I got to see each other, work together, and he's a great guy. But I got to tell this quick story. We work with a bunch of kids. Now, Jason's younger than me, considerably younger than me, but most of the kids there are like in college and high school still. And I made a comment about being old, too old and out of shape to be doing this work. And one kid said, yeah, he agreed with me. And Jason and I just lost it. It was the best part of my day, just watching Jason laugh and then watching this kid try to backtrack. It was so much fun. And I just want to say, I love this writing community because I would not even know Jason if it wasn't for this podcast and this writing community. And now I just love him so much. And I have so much fun working with him. And I am too old and out of shape for that
Oh,
job.
all right. I'm gonna
So
let you
I did share
guys
that.
sign off. Bye for
All
now.
right. Sorry, Jamie. I knew you read, but I know you know Jason too. So, all right, Tina, what's up? What's up with you and what's next?
Well, my husband has a problem.
Oh, besides you?
Yeah,
Haha, just kidding.
Timu. This
Uh-oh.
man is out of control.
Oh no.
Can I just say that we have like 6 packages coming today, and none of them are mine.
Oh wow.
It's just crazy. He's like, I got this thing for $10, and I'm just like, okay, I hope it's actually like good quality. But
Mhm.
anyway, so I gotta hang around the house and for his packages. But I
Mhm.
also got to go buy some tomato cages because I got all my vegetables in the ground that I want
Mhm.
to grow this year, and I'm feeling really accomplished that I broke up the dirt with a broad fork, tilled it, carried 40-pound bags of compost, dumped them out, mixed that all together, put up T-posts in a cattle panel, and planted 9 vegetable plants in my old and out of shape person. So
And you did
that
all
is it.
yourself? I'm so proud of you.
Well, my husband helped a little bit, but like I put the T-post in and then realized they were upside down, and I didn't have the strength to put them back out again.
Sorry. If you garden, you know why this is funny. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Hey,
Yeah, and do you know how much effort I put into getting those stinking T-posts into the ground? And then they were upside down.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
And so he helped me to pull them out and put them in right. And of course, they weren't as wobbly now. Like I'm like, they're in there so deep, but they're just wobbling, and I don't know why. So yeah,
Oh
so
gosh, that's
so he
funny.
did help. He helped me a little bit with some of the broad forking. Mostly because he wanted to try out the broad fork. So
Well, I will say, welcome to the club. It's addictive, and you're gonna love it and hate it all at the same time sometimes.
I've just had vegetable gardens before and they have not done well. And so
Mhm,
I decided to focus on my foundation
mhm.
instead of just throwing stuff into the ground.
Yes.
So I
Cindy
had
agrees. Cindy says putting T-posts in is no joke. I agree with that. I haven't even put mine in yet. This for this current garden that I'm working on, but I have to yet. She says I'm going to get veggie plants to finish my raised beds. I started gardening in March, April-ish, with cold crops. And so my cabbage is looking beautiful. My broccoli is looking beautiful. Like all the like spinach. We've been eating spinach and kale for a couple weeks now. Like it's just So, but
yeah.
my pepper plants and tomato plants have yet to go in because we've still had some kind of cool evenings, but the forecast is looking good. So this weekend mine are going in. But yeah, if you guys like we should do a whole like we don't have a Reddit, like, but I feel like we should. So people are like, maybe on the Facebook group, we should have like a sub, like conversation for all of our fans that are also gardeners, because I could talk about that for hours for sure. So anyway,
Yeah, and I don't have a T-post thing.
oh,
So we were using a hammer.
and you can do that. I mean, yeah.
And I'm kind of short and I'm so the effort that I put into getting those T-posts in the ground, I am proud of myself, even though it went in upside down. Like,
Why didn't you call me? Like, did you just
I
not?
don't know.
I mean,
I called my son-in-law, but he didn't have one. So,
oh, yeah. Next time, just borrow mine. All right, we should talk writing stuff. What's next for you writing?
I need to get back into. I haven't done any writing since I've been home,
Mhm.
except for what we've done here on Fridays. And I really need to, now that my office is organized and my garden is in, I really need to like organize my days so that I have time set aside for it. Because that's the only problem. I haven't scheduled time to put aside for it, and so it doesn't get done.
Mhm. Hey, Jason says that he's sure that you can get tomato cages on Temu also. LOL.
I don't have that kind of time.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go to Walmart.
Home Depot has these square ones, Tina, that fold down flat. They cost a little bit more, but you don't have a huge garden. That's probably what I would go with. Just
Yeah,
suggest. They're
that
just
I think that will work better. I was gonna use one for my zucchini also, so that they're vertical
Mhm.
instead of because my husband doesn't want stuff like out into the grass when he has to mow.
Mm. Jason says that he's hoped to try to get writing in today, but he's got himself stuck. Oh, we should chat then. I love getting people unstuck with their writing. So starting this new job, this is the first time I've worked full time since my oldest was 2 years old. So
Wow.
it has been, I know, it's been, I like it. The people are so good. The mission there is just awesome. Um, but it has been a hard transition for me to try to figure everything out. And I'm just grateful that I'm doing it in the summertime because it's so much daylight. Like I get up at like 5:30 and so I can go out to my garden and I have my time with the Lord and everything before I even go to work at 8. I go to work at 8 a.m. I start at 8 a.m. And then when I get out of work, there's still plenty of daylight left. We'll see how I do keeping on top of stuff. I mean, that's gardening and not like my house is a hot mess. It
Mhm.
needs a good cleaning, but there's gardening to do. So that'll wait.
Yeah, who cares about the
Who
house?
cares about that right now? So writing, I was just thinking about that the other day. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it. It's going to happen. So, but I don't have an answer. My job is so new. I don't have an answer today about how I'm going to fit writing in, but I will
Yeah, you
next
kind of
week.
got to get into the
Yeah.
rhythm and find out what your energy rhythms are and everything.
I have not had a grocery shop on the weekend or evenings for like 20 years. And I'm
Oh,
like,
that's the worst.
yes, like so I've been getting up at like 6 a.m. on Saturdays, the one day I can sleep in and going grocery shopping before it gets too crazy. Tonight, I guess I'm going tonight, which makes me ill to think about Friday evenings at the grocery store. But once you are like a stay-at-home mom and a homeschooler and you realize you can go shopping in the middle of a Tuesday morning and there's like gonna be no one there, like that becomes the norm for you. And then when you have to go to the grocery store and it's like normal for everyone else and it's crowded, you're like, who are all these people and why are they in my way?
Yeah.
So anyway, so I got to
I
get
love
all
it
that
when
kind
I
of
pull
stuff.
into Aldi and the parking lot is pretty empty and it's just me, like
It's
me and the workers in there.
it's so nice, but I'll figure it out. God's got a plan, right? So yeah, Piper says it'll take a good few months to figure out a routine and settle in. Yeah. So yeah, be praying for me. Honestly, I really don't want to wait a few months. I want to get a good rhythm and get this story going. And just be praying for me that, like, as I'm learning all the new stuff and figuring this job out. But yeah, so that's it. Anything else, Tina?
No, not that I can think of.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us this week, and we hope to see you next week. But until next time, may your pen be prolific and your deadlines be met, and may all of your words honor Christ. Bye now.
Bye now.